The bitter Montana wind cut through Lily Vance's threadbare coat like it wasn't even there. Her fingers, red and raw from the cold, clutched the ragged quilt tighter around her infant son as she trudged along the snow-covered path. 3 days since the stagecoach had left her stranded, 3 days of walking with dwindling supplies and a 2-month-old baby who deserved better than a mother who couldn't even keep him warm. "Just a little farther, James," she whispered, her breath forming clouds in the frigid air. "Mama's going to find us somewhere safe." The baby whimpered, his tiny face peeking out from the patchwork quilt that had once adorned her marriage bed. That bed was gone now, along with the husband who'd promised her the world and delivered only heartbreak. 6 months ago, William had ridden off to seek his fortune in the gold fields, leaving his pregnant wife with empty promises of return. The letter that came instead, penned by a stranger, had been brief. William Vance, dead in a mining accident. The distant sound of hoofbeats made Lily pause. Travelers meant danger as often as salvation in these parts in 1872, especially for a woman alone. She stepped off the path, seeking shelter behind a cluster of pine trees, but the snow was deep, and her strength was fading. The hoofbeats grew louder, and she knew she'd been spotted when they slowed. "Madam," a deep voice called out. "You all right there?" Lily turned slowly, clutching James to her chest. The rider sat tall on a chestnut gelding, his broad shoulders draped in a heavy leather coat. The brim of his hat was pulled low against the wind, but she could see a strong jaw lined with stubble and eyes that assessed her with concern. "I'm fine," she lied, her voice cracking from thirst and exhaustion. "Just resting a moment." The man dismounted in one fluid motion, boots crunching in the snow as he approached. "No offense, madam, but you look about ready to drop." His gaze fell to the bundle in her arms. "That a child?" James chose that moment to let out a thin cry, answering for her. The stranger's expression softened immediately. "Where are you headed? There's nothing for miles around here." "Pinewood Junction," she said. "I have an aunt there who might take us in." "Pinewood's a good 30 miles north," he frowned, looking at her worn boots and the pitiful quilt. "You won't make it before nightfall, and there's another storm coming." A gust of wind emphasized his words, sending a shiver through Lily that she couldn't hide. James cried again, louder this time. "Name's Quinn Garrett," the man said, removing his glove and offering his hand. "I've got a place about 2 miles east of here. Nothing fancy, but it's warm and dry." Lily hesitated. Her mother had warned her about the dangers of strange men, but what choice did she have? James needed warmth, food, safety. She couldn't provide any of those things out here. As if reading her thoughts, Quinn Garrett spoke again, his voice gentler. "I understand your caution, madam. I'd feel the same, but that little one doesn't have time for us to get properly acquainted." He nodded toward the baby. She held her baby wrapped in a ragged quilt. "The cowboy said you'll both be warm before nightfall. That's a promise." Something in his steady gaze made Lily believe him. "Her name is Lily," she said. "Lily Vance, and this is James. Pleased to meet you both." Quinn smiled, and for the first time in days, Lily felt a flicker of hope. He helped her onto his horse, then mounted behind her, one arm securely around her waist as they rode. The solid warmth of him at her back was both foreign and comforting. James settled against her chest, soothed by the rhythmic motion. "What brings you out here alone, Mrs. Vance?" Quinn asked after they'd ridden in silence for a while. "It's just Miss now," she corrected quietly. "My husband died in the goldfields. I was going to stay with his family in Oregon, but—" She trailed off, the memory still sharp. "They made it clear I wasn't welcome. Said William had written that the baby might not be his." Quinn's arm tightened briefly around her. "Folks can be cruel. James is his," Lily said firmly. "But I couldn't stay where we weren't wanted. My Aunt Imogen in Pinewood is my only family left." "Well, Miss Vance, seems to me any man worth his salt would know that a woman with the courage to cross half the country with an infant deserves respect, not suspicion." His words warmed her more than she cared to admit. Quinn's place turned out to be a sturdy log cabin nestled in a small clearing, with a barn and corral off to one side. Smoke curled from the stone chimney, promising warmth within. As they approached, the door opened and an older man stepped out. "Got company, Hank," Quinn called as he dismounted and reached up to help Lily down. "So I see," the man called Hank replied, his weathered face curious. "Better get them inside. Sky's fixing to dump more snow on us." The cabin's interior was simple but comfortable. A large hearth with a crackling fire, a wooden table with 4 chairs, a small kitchen area, and doors leading to what Lily assumed were bedrooms. The warmth enveloped her like an embrace, making her eyes sting with grateful tears. "This is Miss Lily Vance and her son James," Quinn said to Hank. "Miss Vance, this is Henry Tucker, my ranch foreman and chief complainer. Don't you listen to him, miss," Hank said, smiling kindly. "I'm also the chief cook around here, which means I outrank him." He gestured to the fire. "Get yourself thawed while I fetch some coffee." Lily moved to the hearth, carefully unwrapping James from the quilt. His cheeks were pink from the cold, but he seemed alert and unharmed. She breathed a sigh of relief. "He's a handsome little fellow," Quinn said, appearing at her side with a thicker blanket. "How old?" "Just over 2 months." She accepted the blanket gratefully. "Thank you for taking us in, Mr. Garrett. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't come along." A shadow passed over his face. "I'm just glad I did." He nodded toward one of the doors. "That room's yours for as long as you need it. There's a wash basin and some clean towels. Hank's putting together some food." Left alone with James, Lily took stock of their situation. They were safe and warm, at least temporarily. Tomorrow, she would need to continue to Pinewood Junction, but for now she allowed herself to feel the first real relief in days. The small bedroom was neat and sparsely furnished with a narrow bed, a chest of drawers, and a nightstand. After washing herself and the baby as best she could, Lily changed James's wrappings and fed him, marveling at how peaceful he looked now that he was warm. When she emerged, the smell of stew filled the cabin. Hank was setting the table while Quinn stood by the window staring out at the falling snow. "Storms picked up," he said without turning. "Roads will be impassable by morning." Lily's heart sank. "I need to reach Pinewood as soon as possible. My aunt isn't expecting us, but I sent a letter before I left Oregon." "Won't nobody be traveling anywhere for at least a few days," Hank said, placing a bowl of steaming stew on the table. "But you're welcome here until the weather breaks." "I couldn't impose, it's no imposition," Quinn interrupted, finally turning from the window. "We've got the room and we're not the type to send a woman and baby out into a blizzard." There was something in his expression that Lily couldn't quite read. Concern, certainly, but something else too. Something that made her pulse quicken slightly. "Thank you," she said simply, unable to find more adequate words. Over dinner, Lily learned that Quinn had built the ranch 5 years earlier after returning from the war. He ran cattle primarily, but also kept horses, which he bred and trained for sale. Hank had been with him from the beginning, having served in the same regiment during the conflict. "Quinn saved my hide more than once during the fighting," Hank said, refilling their coffee cups. "When he offered me a job after, I didn't hesitate. Best decision I ever made." Quinn looked embarrassed. "Hank exaggerates. We looked out for each other, that's all." "What brought you to Montana?" Lily asked. "Wide open spaces," Quinn answered. "After 4 years of battlefields, I wanted somewhere I could breathe." He gave a half smile. "And somewhere far from politicians and their wars." Lily nodded, understanding. The war had touched everyone, one way or another. Her own father had never returned from Gettysburg. After dinner, Hank retired to his room, leaving Lily and Quinn by the fire. James slept peacefully in her arms, his tiny hand curled around her finger. "You're good with him," Quinn observed. "I'm learning," Lily admitted. "It's harder than I imagined doing this alone." "Your husband," Quinn said carefully. "How long has he been gone?" "He left last spring when I was 3 months along, died 2 months later." Lily stroked James's downy hair. "He never knew his son. I'm sorry." "William wasn't a bad man," she said softly, "just restless. Always chasing something bigger, something better." She looked up, meeting Quinn's steady gaze. He couldn't see that what we had was already enough. Quinn nodded, understanding in his eyes. Some men spend their whole lives searching for what's right in front of them. The intensity of his gaze made Lily look away. "And you, Mr. Garrett, no wife waiting for your return?" "No," he said simply. "Never found the right woman, or maybe I did, but the timing was wrong." The fire crackled between them, filling the silence with its warm light. Lily found herself studying Quinn Garrett in a way she hadn't permitted herself earlier. He was handsome in a rugged way, with lines at the corners of his eyes that suggested he smiled often. His hands, now wrapped around a coffee cup, were strong and capable. "You should get some rest," Quinn said finally. "Tomorrow might be a long day if the weather clears." But the weather didn't clear. For 3 days, snow fell steadily, blanketing the world outside in white silence. Inside the cabin, a different kind of warmth grew. Lily watched Quinn with the baby, surprised by how naturally he cradled James, how patiently he walked the floor when the infant was fussy. On the evening of the 3rd day, as Lily sat mending a tear in her dress, Quinn approached with a small wooden object in his hand. "Made this today," he said almost shyly. "For James." It was a rattle beautifully carved from a single piece of wood, smooth and perfectly balanced. Lily took it, touched by the thoughtfulness of the gift. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "Thank you." "Every boy needs a proper toy," Quinn said, sitting beside her, "even if he's too young to appreciate it just yet." Lily looked at the man beside her, this stranger who had opened his home and his heart to them. "Why are you being so kind to us?" Quinn was silent for a moment. "I know what it's like to be alone," he said finally. "After the war I was lost. If it hadn't been for people who showed me kindness when I needed it, I wouldn't have made it." He hesitated, then continued. "There was a family in Kansas. Their son had died at Shiloh where I'd been wounded. They took me in, nursed me back to health, never asked for anything in return." His eyes met hers. "Sometimes helping others is how we help ourselves." Lily reached out impulsively and squeezed his hand. "Well, you've certainly helped us. I don't know how to repay you." "Seeing that little one warm and safe is payment enough," Quinn assured her, but he didn't pull his hand away. They sat like that for a long moment, connected by touch and something deeper that neither was ready to name. Finally, Quinn cleared his throat and stood. "Hank says the storm should let up by morning. If it does, I can take you to Pinewood in the sleigh." Lily nodded, suddenly finding the prospect of reaching her destination less appealing than it had been days ago. "That would be kind, thank you." That night, as she lay in the narrow bed with James sleeping beside her, Lily found herself thinking about Quinn Garrett's smile, the strength of his hands, the gentleness with which he treated her son. It had been so long since she'd felt safe with a man, since she'd felt this peculiar fluttering in her chest. Morning brought clear skies, and the realization that their time at the Garrett ranch was coming to an end. Lily packed their few belongings while Quinn prepared the sleigh and Hank put together a bundle of food for their journey. "You'll be missed around here," Hank told her as he handed over the package. "Been nice having a lady's touch in the place." "And that little fellow's brought more smiles to Quinn's face than I've seen in years." Lily blushed. "He's been very kind. Quinn's a good man," Hank said seriously. "Best I know. Just thought you should hear it from someone else." Outside, Quinn was harnessing 2 sturdy horses to the sleigh. He worked efficiently, his breath forming clouds in the cold air. Lily watched him, James bundled against her chest, and wondered if she was making a mistake in leaving, but what choice did she have? Her aunt was expecting her. She had no claim on Quinn Garrett, no right to disrupt his life further. And yet, "Ready when you are," Quinn called, looking up and catching her watching him. Something passed between them, a current of understanding that made Lily's heart race. The journey to Pinewood Junction would take most of the day. They set off just after breakfast, James secured in a makeshift cradle Quinn had fashioned in the sleigh, blankets tucked around them all. The world was pristine and silent, the snow-covered landscape stretching to the horizon. "Tell me about your aunt," Quinn said as they traveled, the sleigh runners cutting smooth tracks in the snow. Aunt Imogen is my father's sister. She moved west after her husband died in '65. Lily adjusted the blanket over James. She writes rarely, but her last letter mentioned needing help with her boarding house. I'm hoping she meant the offer sincerely. Quinn glanced at her. And if she didn't, the question hung between them, heavy with implication. Lily stared ahead at the endless white. Then I suppose I'll have to find work elsewhere. I have a little money saved, enough for a few weeks of lodging while I look for something. There's another option, Quinn said quietly. You could stay at the ranch. Lily's heart skipped. Mr. Garrett, Quinn, he corrected. After sharing a home for days, I think we can use our given names. Quinn, she conceded. It's a generous offer, but I couldn't impose further. It wouldn't be an imposition. His hands were steady on the reins, but his voice had a slight tremor. The ranch needs someone like you. Hank and we keep things running, but it's not a home, not really. And what would my position be exactly? Lily asked carefully. Quinn was silent for a long moment. Whatever you wanted it to be, he finally said. I'm not proposing anything improper, Lily. You and James could have your own cabin. I've been meaning to build one for a foreman when Hank retires. You could help with the cooking, the accounts, whatever suited you. He hesitated. And perhaps in time if we found we suited each other. He left the sentence unfinished, but Lily understood. Her cheeks warmed despite the cold. It's too soon, she said softly. I barely know you. I know, Quinn agreed. And you have your aunt waiting. I just wanted you to know there's a place for you if you need it. The rest of the journey passed in comfortable conversation, learning more about each other with each mile. Quinn spoke of his dreams for the ranch, his hopes to expand. Lily shared stories of her childhood in Pennsylvania, her brief happiness with William before gold fever took him away. By mid-afternoon, the rooftops of Pinewood Junction appeared in the distance. Lily felt a curious mix of relief and disappointment. Aunt Imogen's boarding house is on the main street, she said as they entered the small town. The blue building with the white trim, if her letters described it accurately. They found the place easily enough. Pinewood wasn't large. The two-story building looked well-maintained with smoke rising from its chimney. Quinn pulled the sleigh to a stop in front. I'll help you inside, he said, jumping down and reaching for James. Lily took a deep breath and followed, suddenly nervous about facing her aunt after so many years. The boarding house was warm and smelled of baking bread. A bell tinkled as they entered, and moments later, a tall woman with iron-gray hair appeared from a back room. She paused, staring at Lily with narrowed eyes. Aunt Imogen, Lily said hesitantly. It's Lily, Edward's daughter. Recognition dawned slowly on the older woman's face. Lily. Good heavens, child, I wasn't expecting you for weeks yet. Her gaze moved to Quinn, holding James. And who might this be? Quinn Garrett, madam, Quinn said, nodding respectfully. I found Miss Vance and her son stranded during the storm and offered them shelter at my ranch until the weather cleared. Imogen's eyebrows rose. Her son. The letter mentioned nothing about a child. Lily swallowed hard. James is 2 months old, Aunt. My husband died before he was born. I see. Imogen's tone was cool. Well, this complicates matters. The position I had in mind was for a single woman able to devote full attention to the boarding house. She looked pointedly at the baby. I'm not equipped for infants here. My guests expect peace and quiet. Lily felt as though she'd been struck. But your letter said, I said I could use help, yes, but I can't have a crying baby disturbing my boarders. Imogen's expression softened slightly. You're welcome to stay a night or two while you make other arrangements, of course. Quinn stepped forward, his jaw tight. Miss Vance traveled hundreds of miles based on your invitation, madam. An invitation extended before I knew her circumstances, Imogen countered. I run a business, Mr. Garrett, not a charity. Lily put a hand on Quinn's arm, stopping whatever retort he was about to make. It's all right, she said quietly, though her heart was racing. We'll only stay the night, Aunt. I wouldn't want to inconvenience you. Imogen nodded briskly. Top of the stairs, first door on the right. Supper's at 6. She turned to Quinn. Will you be needing a room as well, Mr. Garrett? No, thank you, he said stiffly. I'll return in the morning to check on Miss Vance. After Imogen retreated to the kitchen, Quinn handed James back to Lily, his expression troubled. I don't like leaving you here. We'll be fine, Lily assured him, though she wasn't entirely convinced herself. Thank you for everything, Quinn, truly. He hesitated, then reached into his pocket. Take this, he said, pressing some folded bills into her hand, just in case. I couldn't, please. His fingers closed around hers. For James, if not for yourself, she nodded, too overwhelmed to argue. Tomorrow, then. Tomorrow, Quinn agreed, and with a final look that said more than words could, he departed. The room Imogen provided was small but clean, with a narrow bed and a washstand. Lily sat on the edge of the bed, cradling James and fighting back tears. All her hopes, the long journey west for what, to be turned away by the only family she had left. Supper was a strained affair, with 3 male boarders and Imogen making polite conversation while pointedly avoiding any mention of Lily's circumstances. When James began to fuss, Imogen's tight smile made it clear that Lily should remove him immediately. Back in her room, as James nursed hungrily, Lily made her decision. They wouldn't stay where they weren't wanted. But where could they go? The money Quinn had given her would secure lodging for perhaps 2 weeks, but then what? Quinn's offer echoed in her mind. A place at his ranch, a chance to build something new. It seemed too good to be true, too much like the promises William had made and broken, but Quinn wasn't William. In the few days she'd known him, he'd shown more character and kindness than William had in their entire marriage. By morning, Lily was packed and ready, having barely slept. She left a brief note for her aunt, thanking her for the night's lodging but explaining she'd found a position elsewhere. It wasn't entirely a lie, though she hadn't yet decided whether to accept Quinn's offer. She was waiting in the boarding house parlor, James in her arms, when Quinn arrived promptly at 9 o'clock. One look at her packed bag told him everything. She's not changing her mind, then? He asked quietly. Lily shook her head. It's for the best. We wouldn't have been happy here. Quinn nodded, his expression unreadable. Have you thought about what I said yesterday? I have, Lily admitted. But I need to be practical, Quinn. I can't accept charity even from you. It's not charity I'm offering, he said firmly. The ranch needs someone like you. Hank's cooking will kill us eventually, and I'm terrible with figures. You'd earn your keep and then some. Before Lily could respond, the boarding house door opened, admitting a blast of cold air and a well-dressed man in his 50s. He removed his hat, revealing silver hair and a meticulously groomed beard. Judge Peterson? Imogen emerged from the kitchen, her entire demeanor transformed to one of eager hospitality. I wasn't expecting you until next week. Change of plans, Mrs. Whitmore, the judge said smoothly. The circuit court schedule has been adjusted. His gaze fell on Lily and Quinn. Am I interrupting? Not at all, Imogen said quickly. This is my niece, Lily Vance. She's just leaving. The judge smiled politely. A pleasure, Miss Vance. His eyes lingered on James, then moved to Quinn. And you are, Quinn Garrett, Quinn said, extending his hand. I ranch about 20 miles east of here. Recognition dawned on the judge's face. The cavalry captain, I've heard about your operation, quite impressive from what they say. Former captain, Quinn corrected. And the stories are probably exaggerated, Judge Peterson chuckled. Modest, too, you don't see that often these days. He turned back to Imogen. I'll take my usual room, Mrs. Whitmore, if it's available. Of course, Judge, it's all ready for you. Imogen hurried to collect his bags, casting a pointed look at Lily that clearly said their departure should be immediate. Outside in the crisp morning air, Lily turned to Quinn. You didn't mention you were a captain, he shrugged, helping her into the sleigh. It was a lifetime ago. Not something I dwell on. Yet it impressed the judge, she observed. Judges are easily impressed by military titles. Quinn tucked the blankets around her and James. Now, about the ranch, Lily hesitated, torn between pride and practicality. I need to be honest with you, Quinn. I'm grateful for your offer, but I don't want your pity. Pity, Quinn looked genuinely surprised. Is that what you think this is? What else would you call it? You found us freezing by the roadside, took us in, and now you're offering us a home. It's generosity beyond measure, but you think I'm doing it out of pity. Quinn shook his head, a hint of frustration in his voice. Lily, in the few days you've been at the ranch, you've organized the pantry that Hank and I have ignored for years, mended clothes we would have thrown out, and kept better track of our supplies than I've managed in months. You're offering skills we need. And that's all, Lily pressed. A business arrangement, Quinn's expression softened. No, that's not all. He took her gloved hand in his. I won't pretend I don't feel something for you, Lily. Something I haven't felt in a very long time, if ever, but I'm not offering you a place at the ranch because of those feelings. I'm offering it because you and James deserve a fresh start, and I'm in a position to help provide that. Lily looked into his earnest face, sensing the truth in his words. And what if it doesn't work out? What if we don't suit each other, as you put it? Then you'll have had time to save money and make other plans, Quinn said simply. I'm not asking for anything in return, Lily, just the chance to see if what I think we both feel might grow into something real. For the first time since William's death, Lily allowed herself to hope for something more than mere survival. All right, she said softly. We'll come to the ranch, but I insist on earning my keep properly. Quinn's smile could have lit the dark Montana night. I wouldn't have it any other way. The return journey to the ranch seemed shorter somehow, filled with conversation and plans. Quinn spoke of the vegetable garden he'd never had time to properly tend, the accounts that needed organizing, the possibility of selling eggs and butter in town if Lily was interested in keeping chickens. And there's the cabin to build, he added, though you and James are welcome in the main house until it's ready. I could help design it, Lily suggested. I've always had a good eye for making spaces work efficiently. Quinn nodded approvingly. I'd welcome your input. It should be exactly what you want after all. The words hung between them, laden with meaning. What did she want? A home, certainly, safety for James. But as she watched Quinn's profile against the winter landscape, Lily admitted to herself that she was beginning to want more. Hank met them at the door, his weathered face breaking into a grin when he saw their bags. Staying, are you? Thank the Lord. Another day of my cooking and the captain here might have staged a mutiny. Miss Vance and James will be joining us permanently, Quinn confirmed, his eyes meeting Lily's with quiet happiness. She'll be taking over the household management while I build them a proper cabin. Hank nodded approvingly. Best news I've heard all year. The place needs a woman's touch, and that little fellow needs room to grow. The next weeks passed in a flurry of activity. Lily settled into a routine at the ranch, gradually transforming the bachelor quarters into something resembling a home. Fresh curtains appeared at the windows, made from fabric purchased on Quinn's next supply run to town. The pantry was reorganized, meals became regular affairs with proper settings, and the common areas were kept meticulously clean. Quinn, true to his word, began work on the cabin as soon as the weather permitted. It was to be a simple structure at first, just 2 rooms, but he designed it to allow for expansion. Lily spent evenings at the table with him, sketching layouts and suggesting improvements. Throughout it all, James thrived. He grew stronger daily, fascinated by the new surroundings and the 2 men who clearly adored him. Quinn, especially, seemed to delight in the baby's development, proudly announcing each new achievement as if James were his own son. One evening in early April, as the snow finally began to retreat, revealing patches of mud and early grass, Lily found Quinn on the porch, staring at the sunset. James was asleep inside, and Hank had gone to check on a pregnant mare in the barn. Beautiful, isn't it? Lily said, joining him at the railing. Quinn nodded, but his eyes were on her, not the vibrant colors painting the sky. Very beautiful, Lily blushed under his gaze. The cabin's coming along nicely. You're a skilled builder. Had plenty of practice during the war, Quinn said. Though we were building fortifications then, not homes. He hesitated, then continued. I was thinking, though, maybe you don't need the cabin after all, Lily's heart stuttered. Are you asking me to leave? No, Quinn turned fully toward her, alarm in his eyes. The opposite, actually. I was thinking you could stay in the main house, permanently. As your housekeeper, Lily asked carefully. Quinn took a deep breath. As my wife. The word hung in the air between them. Lily stared at him, too stunned to respond immediately. I know it's soon, Quinn continued quickly. And I know you're still healing from losing William, but these past weeks with you and James, they've been the happiest of my life. He took her hands in his. I love you, Lily Vance. I love your strength, your kindness, your determination. I love the way you hold James like he's the most precious thing in the world. I love the home you've made here. Tears filled Lily's eyes. Quinn, you don't have to answer now, he assured her. I just wanted you to know how I feel, what I hope for. Lily squeezed his hands. I don't need time, she whispered. These weeks have shown me who you are, Quinn Garrett, a man of honor, a man who keeps his promises, a man who saw a woman and child in need and offered them not just shelter but a future. She stepped closer to him. I love you too, and yes, I'll be your wife. Quinn's face transformed with joy. He pulled her into his arms, his lips finding hers in a kiss that promised a lifetime of tomorrows. When they finally parted, breathless and smiling, he pressed his forehead to hers. From the moment I saw you on that road, holding James so fiercely despite your exhaustion, I knew you were someone special, he murmured. I just never imagined how quickly you'd capture my heart. Lily's smile widened. And I never imagined that the cowboy who promised we'd be warm before nightfall would end up warming my heart forever. They were married 2 weeks later in the small church in Pinewood Junction. Judge Peterson, in town for the circuit court, performed the ceremony. Hank stood as Quinn's best man, beaming proudly. James, dressed in a christening gown Lily had sewn from one of Quinn's old shirts, watched with wide eyes from Hank's arms as his mother became Mrs. Quinn Garrett. He needs a proper father, Lily had told Quinn the night before the wedding. Are you sure you're ready for that responsibility? Quinn's answer had been immediate and firm. I already think of him as my son, Lily. I'll raise him as my own, teach him everything I know. He'll never doubt he's loved. The wedding night, with James sleeping in a cradle Quinn had crafted, brought a new dimension to their relationship. Tender and passionate, Quinn showed Lily what love between a man and woman could truly be. In his arms, she found healing from the past and hope for the future. Spring turned to summer, and the ranch flourished under their joint care. Quinn's cabin project was repurposed into an expansion of the main house, adding rooms for the family they both hoped would grow. Lily started a vegetable garden that yielded bountifully, and Quinn purchased additional cattle, expanding their herd. News from town reached them occasionally. Imogen's boarding house continued to thrive, though she never reached out to Lily. Judge Peterson, however, became a regular visitor to the ranch, often bringing small gifts for James and legal advice for Quinn as he acquired more land. By James's first birthday in late November, Lily had news of her own to share. On a crisp evening, with the first snow of winter falling gently outside, she sat beside Quinn on the porch swing he'd built over the summer. I have something to tell you, she said, her voice soft with wonder. Quinn turned to her, his expression curious. What is it, love? In about 6 months, James is going to be a big brother. The joy that spread across Quinn's face was everything Lily had hoped for. He gathered her in his arms, laughing with pure delight. A baby, he breathed, his hand moving to rest gently on her still flat stomach. Our baby. Our baby, Lily confirmed, covering his hand with hers. Just as James is our son now. Quinn's eyes shone with emotion. Thank you, he whispered. For what? For giving me a family, for trusting me enough to build a life together. He kissed her tenderly. When I found you on that road last winter, I had no idea I was finding my future. Lily leaned against him, content in a way she'd never imagined possible a year ago. And I had no idea that a stranger's promise of warmth would lead to so much love. The baby girl arrived in late May 1873, a perfect, healthy daughter they named Sophia Grace Garrett. Hank, now firmly established as honorary grandfather to both children, declared her the most beautiful baby ever born in Montana territory. As Lily nursed her daughter in the rocking chair Quinn had crafted, James, now a sturdy toddler, pressed against Quinn's side as they watched from the doorway. "Is baby sister sleeping?" James asked in the loud whisper of small children. "Almost," Quinn answered softly. "Your mama's singing her to sleep, just like she used to do for you." Lily smiled at them over Sophia's downy head, her heart so full it seemed impossible it wouldn't burst. From desperate widow with nowhere to turn to beloved wife and mother of two beautiful children, her journey had been remarkable. And it had all begun on a snow-covered road with a cowboy's simple promise of warmth. 5 years later, the Garrett Ranch had grown into one of the most prosperous in the territory. The main house had been expanded twice more to accommodate their growing family. Sophia had been joined by twin brothers, Edward and Henry, named for Lily's father and their faithful ranch foreman. On the anniversary of the day they met, Quinn and Lily always took a special ride along the road where their paths had first crossed. This year, with the younger children staying home with Hank, they brought 7-year-old James with them. "This is where Papa found us," James asked, looking around at the now familiar landscape. "Right about here," Quinn confirmed, reining his horse to a stop. "Your mama was the bravest woman I'd ever seen, carrying you all that way alone." Lily smiled at the memory, no longer painful with the passage of time. "And your papa was the answer to prayers I hadn't even known how to speak." James considered this solemnly. "And you fell in love right away." Quinn and Lily exchanged glances, sharing a private smile. "Love took a little time," Lily told her son, "but sometimes the most important things do." "But I knew from the start that you and your mama were special," Quinn added, reaching over to ruffle James's hair. "The moment I saw her holding you wrapped in that ragged quilt, I made a promise that you'd both be warm before nightfall." "And we have been ever since," Lily finished softly, her eyes meeting her husband's across the space between their horses, filled with the quiet understanding of a love that had been tested by time and only grown stronger. As they turned their horses back toward home, toward the laughter of their children, the comfort of their hearth, the life they'd built together, Lily sent a silent prayer of gratitude into the vast Montana sky. For the cowboy who had kept his promise, for the warmth that had never faded, for the love that had given her a second chance at happiness when she'd least expected it. And as Quinn reached over to take her hand, his smile as warm as it had been on that first day, Lily knew with absolute certainty that some promises were meant to last forever.